Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? And today's ink is actually one of the inks that you guys voted on for what reviews you wanted to see before I left for my trip, and this one was definitely one of the ones that got a good few votes. It's by Diamine, Autumn Oak. Now, admittedly, this bottle was provided by the fabulous, mysterious benefactor, for which I owe many hours of enjoyment, because this ink is so lovely. I believe it came out in the last year or so, maybe 18 months from the posting of this video. And although I am a California native, I did go to college in rural Vermont, where pretty much their biggest tourist attraction is going to see the leaves in the fall. So every fall when I was heading back to school, we would have the retirees in the RV running around looking at the trees. And it definitely evokes that for me. It so reminds me of, you know, late October, early November in Vermont, watching the leaves change. And yeah, it's just fantastic. All the tests were done in these two Hero 616s. One with a pretty darn broad and wet nib, just the way I like them. And also this more standard Hero 616 with a fine nib. And let's face it, quality control on pens where you get a 10-pack for $7. Yeah, so the nib on this one is actually pretty darn fine. I might even go so far as to call it more like a extra fine. So let's compare it to some other inks. Here we have Autumn Oak up at the top. Definitely see that shading. Definitely see some of that orangey gold business going on. Very lovely. Compared it to some other kind of notorious orangey things. Here's Private Reserve Shoreline Gold, which I heard they're reformulating maybe, but anyways, as you can see, it's got some similarities, but I'd pick Autumn Oak over it. And the infamous Apache Sunset. I mean, there really is just something almost magical about this ink. I mean, look where it's down to like a yellow, and then you get into this sort of darker orange. It's just lovely. I'd say those are definitely the closest out of these. And then last but not least is Jeobon's scented amber ink. It's supposed to be orange scented, but it smells like pine sol, so I don't know what to make of that. So here's the chromatography. Like many Diamine inks, they really don't care about water resistance, it seems. There's very few things that resist water in their line of inks. I can't hold it against them for this ink, though. I mean, yes, it's gone, but also you get a good look at all the shading that can go on here. In the darkest parts, it can almost touch a red. Now, here's the dried version. And you can see there's really no difference. You still can't even see where the initial drop was put. So, yeah, that is a downside to this ink. Top down in density, Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. I'm going to try and hold it real still so you can get a good look. So pretty, right? So pretty. Wonderfully shading ink. It definitely does have like a rich orangeness to it, but where it's really wet. But you do get this almost like golden yellow color in the lighter parts. Granted, since the broad one is much wetter and the fine one is the drier one, it also has this finer line, so it's harder to get a good look at. But yeah. Anyways, the fine took 9.5 seconds to dry. The broad only took 11, which kind of surprised me, but yeah, it's just gorgeous. Now, for some reason, and this was something that happened with this ink quite often, I don't know if it has something to do with surface tension or whatever. Admittedly, science wasn't my best subject, that's why I studied history probably, but the dots took forever to dry, like across the board. So, I don't know, just maybe something to be aware of, but yeah, no bleed, no feather, no spread. Very well behaved, even where it was laid on super thick. It's fantastic. However, it has absolutely no water resistance whatsoever. That was just just a graze with the damp towel I was using to clean this up, so Now, since there is a good bit of ink in this ink, it's not super saturated, but but still, it caused a bit of a mess. Oh, actually, the camera's picking that up more than my eye can, but yeah, it's mostly gone. So, next up, Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. Again, God, just look at that orange. And the thing is, like, it actually can get more of a dark golden yellow. But again, that's the fine nib, and it's harder to get on camera. But yeah, so the fine took 6.5 seconds to dry. The broad took 9, which was really impressive. I don't know. Like in a fine nib, it seems like it's taking long to dry, but on a broad nib, it seems like it's drying fast, so, it's bending the space-time continuum or something, but, yeah, I mean, actually, because the broad is, like, so wet, you actually get a better idea of the shading in the finer nib, but yeah, it's just great. There's no bleed, no feather, no spread, there's no sheen, and, there's not much echo, even where the really big nib was used, but this isn't the darkest ink, and this is still some fairly dense paper. Again, the camera's picking that up a bit more, but you can still see it's really, really gone. That would be a struggle to recover. Next up is Tomoe River, which of course is known for bringing out all the best aspects of shading in an ink, and it'll make pretty much anything sheen. However, I really couldn't find any sheen in this ink. You do get a nice sort of idea at the array of shading you can get here. It is more of an extra fine. It took 12 seconds to dry, and the broad took 17, but for something this wet, I mean, look at how wet that must have been. On this paper, that's really not bad. I'll definitely take that. Gorgeous color. Anyways, yeah, no bleed, no feather, no spread. The dots were still taking forever to dry. Granted, this is very thin paper, and in some parts I was laying it on very thick, and this is a white background, so you might get some echo, but that's always to taste, and always something to be aware of with paper just this thin. So, yeah. As you can see, there's really not much left there. It's, again, the camera's picking it up quite well. Huh. Anyways, yeah, Tomoe River loves to let ink just slide away when you add more water, and that's definitely what happened here. Next up is the world's worst 20-pound copier paper, where I really only use the extra fine, and I'm going to try and bring this close. You can see that there definitely was some spread. It did get the line width did kind of expand. Here it took 2.5 seconds to dry, but you still get a fairly vibrant color. It's not as vibrant, like you can see just how eye-popping this is, but it still has a good bit of brightness to it. There really isn't any shading left, but because at this point we kind of know this paper, we'd expect terrible bleed, feather, and spread. But in this extra fine, it did fairly well. I would like to point out that just for some reason, just this bit was pretty bad, which makes me think that, okay, I'm just grabbing it, but that's kind of weird, right? It makes me think there's something up with the paper. So, yeah, again, because it's more absorbent paper, it sort of sucked the ink in more, so it was harder to wash all of it out. However, I think you might be able to tell that it started to act like chromatography paper and actually suck the water up the ink. But I was trying to do the water test, and it did feather and explode a lot. That would not be easy to recover. Next up is Mead Notebook Paper, where once again, when Mead is outperforming your 20-pound copier paper, you know you've got the world's worst 20-pound copier paper. Again, this was mostly the extra fine. This is still a fairly bright, vibrant orange, very pleasant color. 2 seconds to dry. I said about 99% of the shading is gone, which is, I feel, accurate. Like you see, like here in the end, it's a little darker than in some spots, but still mostly gone. So there's no genuine bleed, but there is some echo. You see, it doesn't come all the way through, but you can get a good glimpse of it from the other side. So something to be aware of. There is a bit of feathering. I'm going to try and get it on camera, but the truth is it's not everywhere. It's just in spots. Like, okay, where's the line of the D in Diamine? That's got a little bit of it. The rest is just like a tiny bit of woolliness. But yeah, again, because it's more absorbent paper, it would be really hard to wash all the ink out. However, a lot of it did leave, but there wasn't a lot of exploding or feathering, so that's not bad. Yeah, echo is kind of intense, but anyways, next up is modern, accurate Moleskine paper. This, as you can tell, I cut it out of a brand new notebook, which as a formerly trained bookbinder kind of hurts my soul a little bit, but when the paper's this bad, I kind of got over it, so, you know. Now, as you can see, there's still a good bit of vibrancy to this ink on this paper, which kind of surprised me. A lot of times on really absorbent papers, it's like it sucks the life out of an ink. But here, it's still a pretty bright orange. I say there's essentially no shading left, but when I sort of look closer, there is. There's not a lot, but there is some. So that's kind of nice. However, there is feathering. I'm going to try and bring this close and hold it still. It's not awful, but it is everywhere. And if you're sensitive to it, and admittedly I am, 4 seconds to dry, maybe something to be aware of. But yeah, so I feel like half of the notes on there are inaccurate, so let's ignore them. Yeah, Moleskine paper doesn't deal well with water. A lot of feathering, a lot of exploding. Got really freakishly dulled in color, but that would not be easy to recover. Now, for such an extra fine nib, that is more bleed than I like, considering this might be up there with some of the finest nibs I own, that particular pen. And that's still a good bit of bleed through, so... Alright, so there you go. Per your request. Diamine Autumn Oak. It's such a lovely color. If you live in a country where it's very hard to get noodlers, I would definitely highly recommend Autumn Oak. It has many similar qualities to Apache Sunset. The only real genuine difference I'd say is that Apache Sunset's spectrum of potential shading is a bit broader, but this one is just fantastic. Don't get it wet, but that's about all I can say. I mean, it's fantastic. Lovely color. Made me feel quite nostalgic. For your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. Bye.